Okay, Boker Tov, good morning. Just want to mention, because a few people asked that the Daf on the podcast is also found on Kol HaLashon, for those who follow Kol HaLashon, and it's also during the days that are not Shabbos and Yom Tov when we can record. It's also on YouTube, the same name, the 35-minute Daf. If you enjoy this Daf podcast and you know anyone else who may benefit from it, please share it with them. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. By doing so, we can help make sure that many around the world with limited time have the opportunity to learn the daily Daf. Thank you. Today's Daf is Daf Ayin Ches.
Is that a paid for announcement?
Yeah, paid for announcement. Paid for. Today's Daf is Daf Ayin Ches in Nidrim. Yesterday we began talking about the Lashon of Zeh Adavar, the beginning of Parshas Nidrim. In Matos, it says, "Vayidaber Moshe el Roshei Matos lemor Zeh Hadavar she'asibo Hashem." So we learned yesterday Zeh Hadavar emphasized that a chacham is matir, uproots the neder, annuls it milamafreya, and a baal breaks it going forward. Zeh Hadavar, a chacham matir, and the baal is not matir, and the other way around. The baal is only mefer, breaks it, cancels it going forward, and the Chacham doesn't do it that way. That Zeh Hadavar comes to emphasize that. Now we'll see another drush in there, where the fifth line on Ayin Ches Al. Never kind of says Zeh Hadavar that I just quoted in the beginning of Matos, where it talks about Nadarim Zeh Hadavar b'nemer laholan Zeh Hadavar b'shchutei chutz. The Ran, even with this line in the Gemara and the left side of the Ran, brings down the pasuk by shchutei chutz that it says in Vayikra. It says Daber al Aaron vel Bonav vel Kol Bnei Yisrael. When it comes to shchutei chutz, what's shchutei chutz? If you have a carbon, it's also to shecht it outside the base of mikdash. You have cars for that. And did it b'shogig, obviously you bring a chatos. But the pasuk says there, el Aaron vel banav vel kol bnei, so applies to everybody. And there it says Zeh Hadavar also. It says Zeh Hadavar, Davar bnei Yisrael. They're all the same. And in Parsha Nadarim it also says Zeh Hadavar that we just quoted. Zeh Hadavar asher tziva. Again, by Nadarim it says, "Vayidaber Moshe el Roshei Hamatos lefnei Yisrael," but Roshei Hamatos, the leaders of the tribes, Zeh Hadavar she'asibo Hashem. So it says by Nadarim Zeh Hadavar, which is referring to Roshei Hamatos, the leaders, meaning we're talking about the rabbis, right? The rabbis, the leaders, the learned people. And by Shchutei Chutz it says everybody. Daber el Aaron vel banav vel kol bnei Yisrael. The rules applies to everybody. So we're trying, but it says Zeh Hadavar in both, so there's Xavier Shav there. Ma b'shchutei chutz, Aaron abarav kol Yisrael, just like b'shchutei chutz, it applies to everybody, even in Israel. Parshas Nadarim also, Aaron abarav kol Yisrael. The Parsha applies to everybody. Okay, so it applies to everybody. So why does it say Roshei Hamatos? We'll see. Umakan Roshei Hamatos, and just by Nadarim it talks about the Roshei Hamatos, the leaders. Af lahola Roshei Hamatos, b'shchutei chutz also it seems to be the leaders. So what limit are we learning out? We're saying when it comes to the Dharma, it talks about the leaders. When it comes to Shchutz, it talks about everybody. But there's a Xavier Shava between the two. It says about both. So why don't we tell us? Why don't we say what's the limit for both? That's what the Gemara is going to say now. So Makam Rosh Masaf Omishras. So Parshas Nadarim L'May Chusab. What is the teach? What is the Xavier Shava from Shchutei Chutz to Nadarim teaching us? By Nadarim it says leaders. So what is Roshei Hamatos? What is the Xavier Shava of Zeh Hadavar teach me in Nadarim? Again, Roshei Hamatos means the leaders, as we'll see, the rabbis, either musmachim, either the ones who have smicha all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu, or the ones who are at least learned. They can be mater neder, and the what we learn out from Kol Bnei Yisrael, Kol Yisrael from Shchutei Chutz via Xavier Shava is to teach me by Nadarim also. You could have three commoners like we do, or Matar Nadarim with three regular people. Achshir Shlosha Yotos. Val Roshei Hamatos. If it says Roshei Hamatos, that seems to contradict the basic idea by Nadarim. By Nadarim it says who's Matar Neder? Who's Matar Neder? Roshei Hamatos, the leaders, the rabbis. Then you say, well, you learn from Shchutei Chutz that anybody can be Matar Neder. So that seems to be contradictory. Is it the leaders or is it commoners? That's what Rosh Hashanah. That if an individual does it, he has to be a mumcha. We'll see. It's as far as the shaila. Is it a mumcha meaning just a learned person, or it means somebody who has smicha? But in any case, we're talking about at least a mumcha. So Rabbi Yochanan says that it's a Yachad Mumcha. In other words, if one person does it, he has to be a Mumcha. But if three people do it, it could be even Shlosha Edyotas. When we say three, really means more than one, which is two, and you don't have a bezin, you don't have a bezin shakli, you don't have an even amount, so it shouldn't be, one against one. You should always have a majority, so we always go to three. We never have a bezin of two, even though there's a shittas matzah that. And this is like a bezdin. It's not really a bezdin, but it's like a bezdin. So we say three. So again, Rosh Matos teaches by Banadorim, one mumcha is good enough. Rosh Matos, a leader, that's for one. But we learn off from Shchut Chutz that Kol Bnei Yisrael if there's three. Rosh Matos b'Shchut Chutz l'mayach. So okay, by Shchut Chutz, the rules apply to everybody. Nobody's allowed to shech the carbon outside, even though we know shchita is kosher, shchita of a carbon is kosher bazar, but nobody's allowed to do it outside the base of Mikdash. So what does it teach me? What does Rashi Matos teach me by Shchut Chutz l'mayach? So Rav Sheshes sheyesh she'ela behekdesh. Oh, what do we mean by that? That just like by Nadarim, you could be sure, you go to Taras Nadarim, go to the rabbi and make an excuse and show that you regret it. And basically it turns out that it's a mistake. So you could be shoel by Nadarim. So you know what? There's a hekesh between, or exerishav between Nadarim and Shchut Chutz. Then in hekesh you could also be shoel and you could be mater the hegdish that you were mater. What do we mean by that? Take a look at the Ran, 2 lines before the lines get wide. Listen to this. Listen to this case. You shech that you makdish and made a kosh. V'shachta b'chutz, and you shech it outside the base of Mikdash. You're over in a terrible avera. And then afterwards, you went to the rabbi and you were shoel on the hegdish. Hegdish is a kind, just like we've been learning in the Dharm till now. How do you make a neder? You're makdish. Then you say this thing is also to me like a carbon, right? You're like makdish it. Well, that's just like you'd be showing it, you'd be shoel on hegdish too. So after you did the terrible avera and you shechted a carbon b'chutz, you went to the rabbi and you said, I regret that I made this animal hegdish, and it wasn't hegdish. The kivin, the initial of potter, you're potter now. Of course, potter was you didn't do the right thing. You shouldn't have shechted it outside the base of English, but you can get out of it now by being shown hegdish. In other words, so with the mafreya retroactively, what you were makdish and what you shechted b'chutz was not a problem because it wasn't hektish at all. The kivin, the Ran goes on, the first of the wide lines of the Ran. The kivin sheyeh shela behektish, since you could be sure you're makdish. Kilu lo hiktish shomei olam dami. It's as if you were never makdish it. The chacham okra neder beikara, as we said before, a chacham when he's mater neder, he annuls it lemafreyet from its original. It's never a neder at all. So you were makdish. Something comes, you were makdish something. I say this animal I'm bringing as a shlamim, or if you chayav a carbon, let's say a chatos, whatever, and afterwards you shech it outside. I'm showing that I don't mean to make that hektish at all. I made a mistake. I realized I made a mistake. I wouldn't have done it. The chacham was mater neder. So again, we have exever shava between Nadarim, where it says Zadavar, and between Shchut Chutz, where it says Zadavar. By Nadarim, it says Rosh Matos, right? And what is it? What does the exever shava teach me to Shchut Chutz? That just like you can be shoal on a neder, you can be shoal on a carbon also. And what do we learn out from Shchut Chutz to Nadarim? Just like by Shchut Chutz it says Aaron of Kol Yisrael, everybody. The same thing. Nadarim also everybody can break a Nadarim. What do you mean? It can be mater neder. What do you mean everybody? But it says Rosh Matos. Rosh Matos is if it's one person. One person has to be a Rosh Matos, has to be a mumcha. But if you use 3, you can use even commoners, as you see Kol Bnei Yisrael. That's what we learn out from Shchut Chutz to Nadarim. What about says Gemara? What about L'Beis Shammai? We're halfway down the page on Ayin Ches Manal. L'Beis Shammai to Amar Ein Sheila Behektish. So we just said that. What do we learn out to Nadarim from Shchut Chutz? That you can be shoel. I mean, from Nadarim to Shchut Chutz, that you can be shoel on Hektish. Just like by Nadarim you can be shoel. We learn it from Nadarim to Shchut Chutz. Okay, but Beis Shammai says Ein Sheila Behektish. The Beis Shammai to Amar Ein Sheila Behektish. Rosh Matos to Shchut Chutz l'mayachasa. So what does it say Rosh Matos for? What are you learning from there? What does that teach me? Right? Ein Shel Begdish. So in other words, it doesn't really say Rosh Matos by Shchut Chutz. We're saying what's the purpose of the Gzeir Shava? We're applying the Nadarim to Shchut Chutz. Doesn't really mean Rosh Matos to Shchut Chutz. It doesn't really mean Rosh Matos. It means say that there's Ze'adavar to Ze'adavar. What do we learn from the Nadarim to Shchut Chutz? Well, according to Beis Hillel, you learn out that Yesh Sheila Behektish. But according to Beis Shammai, it says Ein Sheila Behektish. So what's the purpose of the Gzeira Shava? So the Gemara says, Beis Shammai less Gzeira Shava. They don't hold the Gzeira Shava at all. They don't hold Zeh Davar. Gzeira Shava is something that's mukubal from your Rebbe. You can't make up a Gzeira Shava, and you can't say, well, it says here Vayidaber, it says there Vayidaber. You can't make up your own Gzeira Shavas. There are machlokas about Gzeira Shavas because could be a rebuild. Like there was once, I think one of the rabbis said that there was X amount, over 2,000 Gzeira Shavas given to Moshe at Sinai, but which ones they are, that was a machlokas in the Gemara. But you certainly can make up on your own. Beis Shammai doesn't hold the Gzeira Shava. He doesn't know the Gzeira Shava. So how do you know that he holds Ein Sheila B'Hekdesh? So the Ran explains in the second of the wide lines, Beis Shammai Dharma Ein Sheila B'Hekdesh, Beis Shammai the Hekdesh, right? Over there, the Gemara talks about Hekdesh Tos. If you made something Hekdesh by mistake, is it Hekdesh or not? So it says Hekdesh Tos. Beis Shammai holds it is Hekdesh. No mistakes. There's no gimme backs. There's no backseats. You can't get it back. Once you make something, even if you made a mistake, the Kivin Shekain, Badi Beis Shammai Ein Sheila B'Hekdesh. Why? The Ran says beautifully. The Sheila Lo Mahani Ela Mishum David Le Kinet and Tos. Why is Shoah? Why can you go to the rabbi and do a Tosas Dharm? Because it turns out that you made a mistake, right? It turns out a mistake, so it was a mistake. But Beis Shammai says mistakes don't help when it comes to Hekdesh. You can't get out of it by saying I made a mistake. So therefore, since Beis Shammai holds Hekdesh B'Tos is still Hekdesh, they obviously hold Ein Sheila B'Hekdesh. The Sheila only works because it turns out that it's a mistake, but a mistake doesn't help you when it comes to Hekdesh. So according to Beis Shammai, that holds Ein Sheila B'Hekdesh, what's the limit? The answer is they don't hold the Gzeira Shava. Okay, so they don't hold the Gzeira Shava going from the Nadarim to Shchutei Chutz, that just like by Nadarim, Beis Hillel would say, Yesh Sheila, you can be sure on it by Shchutei Chutz also. No, they don't hold to that. Okay, but what was the other? What did we learn out from Shchutei Chutz to Nadarim? That just like by Shchutei Chutz, it's called Bnei Yisrael, right? That if you have 3 Hedyotos, they could also be Mater Netter. By Nadarim, it says Rashi Matos. That's a mumcha. That's one guy. If he's a mumcha, could be Mater his own. But what happens if you have commoners? So there you learn from Bnei Yisrael. If you have 3 commoners, that's as good as that. So how does Beis Shammai know that? Beis Shammai does hold of that. The Gemara says that now. So Zad over Parshas Nadarim L'Mai Ksiv. So first thing Gemara says, I jumped ahead a little bit. So Beis Shammai doesn't know the Gzeira Shava. If they don't know the Gzeira Shava, what does the Zad Dover teach me? We started off even yesterday, the end of yesterday's Gemara, Zad Dover, gotta be this one. Zad Dover, Parshas Nadarim, Mike said, what does it say? Lomer, that the Chacham Mater, Vein Baal Mater, like we said at the end of yesterday's daf, beginning of today's daf, that a Chacham is Mater and the Baal is not Mater. When a Baal takes away net, he doesn't do Lamafreya. Baal Mefer, and Chacham Mefer, the Baal breaks it, cancels it going forward, the Chacham is not Mefer. What about the Zad Dover Shchutei Chutz? Again, Beis Shammai doesn't hold to the Gzeira Shava. So what does Zad Dover teach me? By Nadarim, it teaches me that the Chacham is Mater and Baal is not Mater. The Baal is Mefer, the Chacham is not Mefer. What about the Zad Dover Shchutei Chutz? L'Mai, so what does it say that for? Lomar ala Shchita Chayiv and Shchita ala Malika. You're only Chayiv Shchita b'chutz if it's Shchita, but not Malika. When it comes to a bird, remember there's birds. You can bring Torah or B'nai Yonah, it could also be brought as a carbon in certain cases, right? Certain karbanos can be brought with birds. It's got to be a chatas or an ola. There's no shlomim or ashim or anything like that, but there is either a chatas or an ola can be brought with birds. And with birds, you do malika. With the Kohen, it has to be with the Kohen's right thumbnail. That's how he kills. That's how he does the shchita. It's called malika, and it's only by a carbon. By malika of chulin is an avela. That's like you just shot the animal, blew his brains out with a gun. It's not kosher. It's an avela. But when it comes to a carbon, an ola or a chatas that's brought with a bird, you're chayiv on shchita b'chutz, but not on malika. If you did the bird outside the base mikdash, that's not called shchutei chutz. It's also obviously, but it's not shchita chutz that you're chayiv on. So zeh dover zatem dafka shchita. It says asher yishachet shchita chayiv and chayiv ala malika. And Beis Hillel, that's what Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai learns it out from zeh dover. Beis Hillel learns it out from says asher yishachet. But the Ran asks another question. The Ran says, okay, if Beis Hillel, if Beis Shammai uses Zeh Davar to teach me Chacham Mater vein Baal Mater, Baal Mefer vein Chacham Mater, how does Beis Hillel know that? Remember the drasha we brought down the end of yesterday's Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan Chacham Shem the Tanya Zeh Davar Chacham is Mater and Baal vein Baal Mater. The Baal is Mefer vein Chacham Mefer. If that's what Ze'adavar is learning, if that's what Beis Shammai is learning out from Ze'adavar, well, Beis Hillel uses Ze'adavar for the Gzeira Shava that we've been describing until now. So how do they know this drasha? So the Ran says you learn out both things, meaning they agree with Beis Shammai that Ze'adavar teaches me this idea that Baal Matir ve'ein, that the Chacham Matir ve'ein Baal Matir, Baal Mefer ve'ein Chacham Mefer. That's what Ze'adavar is teaching me. But the Ze'adavar by Shchutei Chutz is extra. And therefore, what do we have a cloud that if the word is extra in both places, then you can't even ask a kasha on it. But if it's only extra in one place, you can learn the Gzeira Shava, but it's open to questions. So they'll learn they still holds of the Gzeira Shava, comparing Shchutei Chutz to Nadarim, and we learn out from Nadarim to Shchutei Chutz that what Yesh She'ela Behektish, and from Shchutei Chutz we learn out to Nadarim that you can use commoners, albeit 3, not 1. And the Ze'adavar by Nadarim still teaches me the idea of Baal Mefer and Chacham Mefer, even though it's not Mufnim, because now the Ze'adavar is not extra by Nadarim because you need it for the drasha of Chacham Matir and Baal Matir. But at least it's extra in the case of the Shchutei Chutz. That's what the Ran explains here. So now the Gemara goes on. Okay, fine. So now we understand what they did with Ze'adavar, right? Ze'adavar teaches me that drasha, and what about the Ze'adavar Shchutei Chutz? That teaches me al Shchita Chayiv and Mlika, and Beis Hillel holds of it too, but he learns it from Asher Yishach instead of the word Ze'adavar. Fine, but if you don't have the Gzeira Shava, how do you know that you could be maternetta with three? The pasuk says by Nadarim, Rashi Amatos, right? We quoted that pasuk before. Beginning of the parsha of Nadarim, Michael, what does it say? Vaydaber Moshe el Rashi Amatos l'Bnei Yisrael le'mor Ze'adavar shitziv el Hashem. Rashi Amatos. You need a rosh, a mumcha to be mater neder. And we said, fine. We learned from Shchutei Chutz, the Gzeira Shava, that even 3 can do it if they're even 3 commoners could do it. But Beis Shammai doesn't hold the Gzeira Shava. So according to Gemara now it says El Beis Shammai l'achshir gimel idiotos marom. How do you know 3 idiotos are good to be mater neder? Nafkalu mit Rav Asi bar Nosson. They learn from the following drush of Rav Asi bar Nosson. What's his drush? The pasuk says like this. It says Eila Modei Hashem Asher Tukrosam Mo'adam, right? And Vayidaber Moshe Es Modei Hashem Bnei Yisrael. That's in the parsha talking about the holidays, right? Eila Modei Hashem Asher Tukrosam Bnei Yisrael. From the Ranas Mashma that he's talking about also the pasuk Eila, because that's going to be the drasha Eila Moadei Hashem Samdam. And then it's the Dav Moshe talking about the holidays. But okay, that's what the pasuk says. But Tanya, we learned basically Omer Moadei Nemru Lo Nemru Shabbos Bereshis. It says there Moadei Eila Moadei Hashem talking about the Moadim, but Shabbos Bereshis is not mentioned. When we say Shabbos Bereshis, what do we mean? We mean regular Shabbos. You don't mean Shabbos Bereshis, the first one that took place. We just don't say that's always the Shabbos that we're talking about, the regular Shabbos that comes every Saturday, the 7th day of the week. So it says Moadei Hashem and not Shabbos. Okay, then that's one drasha. Then Azay Omer in this brisa, Moadei Nemru v'lonem Parshas Nadarim. It says Moadim and not Parshas Nadarim. What does that mean? In other words, the Moadim Hashem and not Nadarim. So Rav Asi bar Nosson said, "What's going on over here? What does that brisa mean?" It says Rabbi Yossi says Moadei Hashem Nemru, but it doesn't say Shabbos. It does say Shabbos there in the part, right? It says V'shomer Shabbos. That parsha in Vayikra talks about Shabbos there too when it talks about the Moadim. And Ben Azai says Moadei Hashem, but never Parsha Dar. So Rav Asi bar Nosson Nikashla, he had a kasha hamasni. So this brisa he didn't understand both Rabbi Yossi Glili and Ben Azai, as we'll see in a second. Also, I came to Nadal, the comment of Rav Sheshes, looking for Rav Sheshes to ask him what's shot in this brisa. He didn't find Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes wasn't there at home. Also, Basrael Mechuzah. So he followed him. He heard that he went to Mechuzah. He went to Mechuzah, and he found Rav Sheshes there. Amalei says, Moadei Hashem Nemer V'Lo Nemer Shabbos Bereshis. And that's what Rabbi Yossi Glili said in the brisa. It says Moadei Hashem in Vayikra, and it doesn't say Shabbos there. But Shabbos Mon, it says Shabbos there too. It says the parsha Shabbos, all that, it's all written in the same parsha. It's together. What is that drasha? Talking about the Moadim Hashem, but not Shabbos, the holidays, but not Shabbos. Besu, and what Ben Azai said, it says Moadei Hashem Nemru V'Lo Parshas Nadarim Moan. What are you talking about? It says it right next to it on the side. Rashi lives on the side. Sitra is according to the Ran says that Sitra is like the end, the katzeh. It means at the end. Sitra targum shal katzeh, the end or near. Here we have like what do we say here? How do you say a one-way street here? Chad Sitri. Someone say, or the Sitra Achra we talk about, right? This is Sutton, the Sitra Achra means the edge, the side next to us, right? What do you talk when it talks about when you think of all the Moadim, what do we read on Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov? What do we read the mafter from? From Pinchas, right? All the holidays are mentioned there. What's right after Pinchas? Matos, which the beginning of Matos is what with the pasuk we said before, Rosh Matos. So what is he? I don't understand this brisa. The first part says Moed Hashem Nemru when it talks about Eilu Moed Hashem Israel, right before they talk about Shabbos. So what do you mean? It says Moed Hashem and not Shabbos. And then Ben Azai says Moed Hashem and not Nadarim. What do you mean not Nadarim? It says Moed Hashem, all the holidays are written right next to Nadarim. Amalei Sheshes answered him Hachiktani. This is what it means. You understand the drasha. I'll explain the drasha now. Moed Hashem Tzrichen Kiddush Bezdin. The holidays need the Kiddush of Bezdin. Bezdin is Mekudesh al Yidei. How do you make? I'm not Bezdin Mekudesh, but the Bezdin Mekudesh al Yidei, the rabbis who gave him smicha. But the holidays, how do you decide the holidays? Bezdin makes the Chodesh, right? Bezdin decides the Chodesh, and that's how you know when the holidays is. How do you know when Yom Tov is? Because Bezdin decides when Rosh Chodesh is. So Shabbos Breishis ain't Tzrichen Kiddush. You don't have to. Bezdin doesn't have to say Sunday is the first day of the week. And then you count Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Yom Shishi, and then Shabbos. You don't need Bezdin for that. That's automatic. It's one of the nisim that the guy never messed with that. Otherwise, we'd have problem. That you couldn't work on Saturday. But they never made Shabbos in the middle of the week. Nobody messed with the week. With Sunday to Shabbos. Nobody ever messed with that. But anyway, that's the drush. It's not that Moed Hashem. Or the Modim are not written next to the Parsha of Shabbos. Shabbos is mentioned in Vayikra next to the holidays. The Moed Hashem, what he means to say is, by Dapim Hashem, basically Moed Hashem, Ruvalo Nem Shabbos Breishis. Moed Hashem need Kiddush Bezdin, right? Asher Tikro Som Mikra Kiddush. You have to call them. You have to decide. You, Moshe and Aaron, have to decide when Yom Tov is based on when you call Rosh Chodesh to be. So he says, this is the pshat. Moed Hashem is excluded from Eila. The Ran explains that it's Eila, meaning you Moshe and Aaron who are musmachim, who are mumchim, those moedim need Kiddush Chodesh. You have to be mekadesh the Chodesh so we know when Yom Tov is. Shabbos Breishis doesn't require your activity, doesn't require you to call them anything. Shabbos Breishis ain't Tzrichen Hegesh. The second drasha, ain't Tzrichen Kiddush Bezdin. Moed Hashem Tzrichen Mumcha. This is the second drasha of Eila Moed Hashem. Eila Moed Hashem Moed. That's the drasha Ben Azai. Moed Hashem Tzrichen Mumcha. The Moed Hashem need a Mumcha to decide when Yom Tov is, right? Because you need a Mumcha like a Bezdin who's a Mumcha to decide when Rosh Chodesh is and thereby decide when Yom Tov is. Ain't Parshas Nadarim Tzrichen Mumcha. Nadarim, meaning being matronet, it doesn't require Mumcha. Afilu Bezdin Yotas. Even Bezdin Yotas is good enough. But Parshas Nadarim Rosh Matos Ksiv. How can you deny that you don't need a Mumcha? By Parshas Nadarim it says Rosh Matos. Amar Chista B'Teimer Yochanan B'Yochid Mumcha. So this is how Beis Shammai learns. In other words, we all agree that Hatar Nadarim could be with Yochid Mumcha or with 3 Yotas. But Beis Hillel, everybody other than Beis Shammai learns it out from the Gzeir Shava, from Shchut Echutz. It's like by Shchut Echutz it says all Bnei Yisrael, and it says Zadavar by both Shchut Echutz and by Nadarim. So we apply it to Nadarim too. When it says Rosh Matos by Nadarim, that reads the Yochid Mumcha. When it says Zadavar, that teaches me the Gzeir Shava that Shlosh Yochos are good enough too. Whereas Beis Shammai holds of the same halacha, but he learns it out from this drasha because it says Eila by the Moedim need Kiddush HaChodesh and not Shabbos, and the Moedim require you Moshe and Aaron mumchim, but not Nadarim. Nadarim could even be 3 Yotos if you don't have a mumcha there. What about this mumcha that we're talking about here? So the Ran says Look in the last line on Amud Aleph in the Ram. B'yochid mumcha lachiksiv Rashi Matos Hashmini Deichad Avi Mumcha B'yochid Sagi. It says Rashi Matos, if you have a mumcha, one is good enough. Umimiyuta the Eila, because it says Eila shetikar some adam Yalfina and the Deichad Avi Yotos. If there are Yotos, Miskashi B'Shlosha, 3 is good enough. Umashmei Hacha, the top of Amud Beis. Umashmei Hacha, the Yochid Mumcha, the Shari Nidrim. This we say the Yochid Mumcha. Dafka samach kamocha, dafka somebody who has smicha kamumcha shamoa de Hashem dainu Moshe Aaron. Moshe Aaron musmachim. So just like that, it's mashma that the yochim mumcha is like Moshe Aaron. The ein hefesh bein zelzeh el shamoa de Hashem strichen shlosha. Moed de Hashem need 3 mumchin. Unedarm sagi b'yochid. But the Rambam goes on to say no, that koshu muvik matir yichidi. It doesn't have to be really the drush is not 100% because anybody who's a mumcha, even if he's not a musmach, that's good. Koshu Rav Muvak Mater Yechidi, and he goes on to explain. Otherwise, the Ran has a whole arichas here going back and forth about what the halacha would be. But he says if it would be that you need a musmach, well, today nobody could be. If you need a musmach, then you could never have one rabbi today being Mater Neder. You could have 3 idiotas. You could ever because nobody's musmachim today. But anyway, it goes on to say the Rambam is mashma. Well, Yochid Muvak is good enough, even though it's not mashma from our Gemara the way. From our Gemara, it's mashma that Kiddush HaChodesh, which means the making Yontif, that requires a bezdin like Moshe and Aaron, whereas Nadarim requires only one like Moshe and Aaron would be musmach. That's what it's mashma pashut in the Gemara. But the Rambam says no, the Yochid that we're talking about doesn't have to be musmach, it has to be just a mumcha, a one who is learned. And the Ran also pointed out in Aleph that even when we talk about 3 idiotos, they can't be 3, morons who know nothing. You just can't get 3 guys who can't even read the words and don't know what we're talking about. They have to understand that they're being mater neder over here. The Ran says that on Aleph. Allah Shlosh idiotos, the Ran on Aleph in the narrow lines, about a third of the way down on the page on Aleph says, hi idiotos, I mean a low kula idiotos. Not all idiotas are kosher. Elahana dechi masbrelo. And when you explain it to them, they understand. You could have siv in paragraph behind it. Akasiv Yishalmi shlosh shen yod liftoach matir and kazakin. To even know to be make a pesach. Near be'enai then eat lo shavu adam l'shutchutz. So Ryan goes on to say it's not exactly shutchutz, but by shutchutz anybody could do it. Anybody could shecht. Everybody's lachan. By Nadarim, it's not just anybody. It's got to be somebody who can understand. But it's close enough. That's the Xer Shav is. It's for the Xer Shav. It's good enough. All right, now we're on Amud Beis. If they know halachas of shchit, but they don't have to have a kavanah. It's like, for example, you can't. Let's say you shech something, almanah something. It doesn't work that way. It's automatic. Once if you do the shchita properly, even a cotton could do it. Yeah.
We use hedyotos for hatras nadarim, but for shchita,
you have to know the halachas. You have to know the halachas, but if the shchita,
not only the halachas. You have to know the halachas, but you have to be
skilled. No, but I'm saying, but even if you don't, what I'm saying is you don't have to know the halachas. If you did it, let's say they taught a moron how to do it and he did it properly, it doesn't require kavanah. That's what you have supposed to make a bracha and all that, but it doesn't require kavanah. Anybody could do shchita if the shchita was done right. If it was done even by a cotton and gadol omer love, it's good enough. Amar Chanina, a new halacha now, a new thing that we're trying to come up with, which is going to be slugged up onto tomorrow's Gemara. We've learned till now that how does a husband or father break a neder? He's got to do it the day that he heard about it. And we came out that the halacha is not 24 hours like the 2 rabbis, right? But rather you have that day and that's it. Whatever the day is, as many hours as left in the day. If you did it at night, she made the neder at night, you have almost 24 hours till the next day shkia. If you did it right before shkia, you only have that day. If it was on Shabbos and it was something that was nogea to Shabbos, right? If it was on Shabbos, and you hold like we hold that you only have that day, you can break it no matter what, because even if it's not Lugay of Shabbos, even if it's not a neder that's necessary, it's the union of Shabbos, you can still break it because if you don't break it now, that's it. So he only has that day, and afterwards, if he didn't break it, it's automatically Mekuyam. So what are his choices? When he hears the neder, he could either say nothing, and if he says nothing and the day passes, it's Mekuyam, or he could break it, or he could be Mekayim it right then. Right? One of those choices. But there's several ways to be Mekayim. We're going to talk about it now. I'm Rav Chanina. Rav Chanina says, Anu halacha, hashosek al menas lamek. Let's say he's quiet. He hears her make the neder, and he wants to provoke her. He wants to make a little fight. I'm not going to make it easy on you. He says she makes a neder, and he's quiet. He really is planning on breaking it. but he wants to make her suffer a little bit with the neder, because she wants to teach her a lesson. So the Rav Chanina says if he's quiet just to provoke her, meaning he's planning on breaking it, maybe he could break it. I feel me kind about it. Could break it even 10 days later. Ad yom usually just doesn't mean dafka 10. It means he could break it. He's not limited by the normal rule that he has only one day that day to either break it or be mekayim it. But as we said before, he could either break it or he could be mekayim, or he could wait out the day and then it's mekuyim automatically. So he says, and he says, no. If he really isn't he's planning on breaking it, but he just wants to provoke her, wants to start a fight with her and make her suffer a little bit, he can break it even later on. Masav Rava, now he says it's halacha, but we're going to slug him up. Masav Rava has a kasha on this. Amosai, when there's a husband and a father. Remember, the girl's up until the age of 12 and a half, right? She's between, let's say, the ages of 11 when her net counts, until the age of 12 and a half, and she's engaged, she's betrothed to this guy. So there's a husband and a father in the mix. They both have to break it together. Let's say the husband died. When do we say if the husband dies? The father now is able to break it on his own like he could before she was engaged. This man shalosh shamabal, either he hadn't heard it yet and he died, or he heard about it and he was quiet. He died that day. In other words, he didn't hear about it, or he heard about it and he was quiet and he died that day, or he heard about it, behafer, and he broke it, umeis, and he died that day. So when he died that day, remember we said his afara doesn't count, remember? And it goes to the father. The father can break the whole thing on his own now, according to at least the one sheet if you hold Megas Gaius. We talked about that before. Avol, because in this case, what the husband did is nothing, so the father could do it. Let's say the father broke half, but we said it's machloket beisol meshamai. But okay, let's talk about this case. The husband died that day. Avol shoma b'kayim. But if he heard about it and he confirmed it, if once the husband confirmed it, oh shishama b'shas, or he was quiet, he died the next day, which is the same as confirming it. And yachalefer, then the father can't break it anymore. Why? Because the husband confirmed it. And once he died the next day, right? Once that day has passed and he was mekayim it or he was quiet, it's mekayim already. Then the father can't break it anymore. My love like it. Isn't that also speaking about where he was quiet with the condition? He was quiet. Why was he quiet? In order to provoke her, to start a fight with her. Meaning he was planning on breaking it later on. But he didn't break it yet because he wanted to make her suffer. Make it, and even so, he's trying to. You say you can't break it anymore. We said once that he was quiet, the day passed and he was quiet, and he died. He died the next day. It's already confirmed. What do you mean it's confirmed? According to Chani, it's not confirmed. If he was quiet because he was trying to make her suffer, he could still break it later on. So therefore, if he died and it wasn't yet finished, the diyum wasn't finished here, the father should still be able to break it. Make it. He was quiet in that place. He was quiet in order to be mekayim it. If he was quiet in order to be mekayim, that was his intention. Then he can't. Then the father can't break it anymore. But if Chanina will maintain that he was quiet just in order to make her suffer, he could still break it later on. Gemara says if he was quiet, if he was quiet in his mind, if he was mekayim, it's the same as shama b'kayim. And here we'll see that this shosik amanas l'kayim means he was quiet in his mind. He says, "I'm being mekayim right now in my mind. I'm confirming it. That's good enough. That's good enough right then and there." So that's the same as shama b'kayim. So Ella b'shosik stam. The answer is no. He wasn't quiet al manas with the condition that he's planning mekayim. Shosik stam. In other words, you can't prove anything from here. What are we saying now? We're saying now that there's several options, not just what we said before. He could either break it, or he could be mekayim it, or he could be quiet till the next day. Rav Chanina is saying, no, there's another quiet. There's a quiet where he's trying to start up with her. He's trying to make her suffer, which means that he's extended the period of time in which he could break it. It's not over at the end of the day like it normally is. Rav Chanina is saying a new halacha. But what about shosek almanas l'kayim? Shosek almanas l'kayim is also mekayim. In other words, he could either break it, he could be mekayim, says I confirm it, or he can be quiet and say in his mind, I'm confirming it. As we'll see, that's good enough. That's another option. Or this option of Rav Chanina. So, or another option, he could be, he's quiet, he didn't decide anything yet. Maybe he's holding his peace and he'll take it under advisement. So according to this, there's 5 options now. Why? Rav Chanina says one option, I'm just going to start up with her. I'm really going to break it later on, but I'm going to start up with her. And then you have unlimited time according to Rav Chanina. We don't really hold to that. We'll see, we're going to slug it up. We didn't slug it up yet, but we're going to slug it up. But what are the other options? Breaking it, being mekayim it in your mind, by being quiet, being mekayim it, or taking it under advisement and saying, oh, let me wait through the rest of the day, show 6 times. Let me wait. I'm not breaking, I'm mekayim it. Let me think about it. Maybe you shouldn't eat oranges anymore. Or maybe you shouldn't go to your mother anymore. Whatever netter was, I'm going to think about it. So we have several options: breaking it, being mekayim it in your mind, or taking it under advisement, holding off. And that's what he says. Maybe it's shosek stam. Therefore, you can't prove it from here. Must have another kasha. Must have Rav Chisda another kasha on Rav Chanina, right? On Rav Chanina's halacha that if you're doing it to make her suffer, you have unlimited time. You can break it later on. Must have Rav Chisda. Chomer behekim behefer. Confirming it has a stringency over breaking it. Ubehefer behekim, and breaking it has a stringency over confirming it. In what sense? Chomer behekim. There's a stringency that shashtika mekayemas, that just being quiet is mekayem. If you're quiet and you wait the whole day, right? If you waited the whole day, that's like saikiyim. Vein shtikim vatelis, right? Being quiet is not mevatel. Another way to be mevatel, as we learned yesterday, is when you say mufer lichi, right? Mufer lichi or batel lichi. You got to say something. You can't break it just by being quiet, but you could break it. You could confirm it by being quiet. That's one chumrah. Another chumrah, kayim belibo kayim, hefer believe mental kayim. This is similar to that, but it's not the same. If you're mekayim it in your heart immediately, not you waited the whole day. Shtika mekayim is the whole day. Kayim believe means in my heart. I was quiet, but in my heart I confirmed it. That's good enough. Hafer belibo, enamofer. But if you broke it in your heart, it's not broken. Kayim eni yachalef. Now the following thing is not a chumrah, but it's just another halacha. He says, once you're mekayim it, you can't break it anymore. En yachalefer. Hafer if you break it, en yachalekayim. But there is a cooler, as we'll see. But it's generally the idea is once you confirm it, you can't break it anymore. Once you broke it, you can't confirm it. It's one or the other. All right. Tani, what do we see here? Shashtika mekayemis. Shtika is mekayim. My love b'shosik amnas make it doesn't that even include being quiet with the intention of starting up with her, of provoking her, and even so we say it's considered a kiyum right away by the end of the day. Not that you have unlimited time to break it later on. And this is the kasha on Rav Chanina. The Gemara says no, the same answer. Lo b'shosik amnas l'kayim. He's quiet with the condition that he wants to be mekayim. He's shosik with the condition. So hainu kayim belibo. Kayim isn't that the same as when you are? Ella b'shosik stam. Doesn't mean amnas l'kayim. He's not shosik with the intention that he's being mekayim. He's simply quiet, and he's taking it under advisement. In other words, he doesn't have a kavanah one way or the other. He's quiet right now, right? Shtika means quiet the whole day, and he has no intention. I don't want to confirm it. I don't want to deny it. No confirm, no breaking. But if he waits the whole day, then it's already mekuyim. Okay, so that's his answer. So there's no proof from here against Rav Chanina, because when we say shtika mekayemis, it could be shosek stam. But if it was shosek al manas make it shosek on the condition to make her suffer, Rav Chanina will maintain you have unlimited time to break it. Ashken, when we say unlimited, we don't really mean unlimited, because probably doesn't apply when she's 12 and a half. It doesn't apply anymore, but it means he has plenty of time. It's not limited by that day. The Gemara just ends off Ashken Chomer Hekem. That's so you gave the chumras of the stringencies of confirming mibehefer over breaking. Behefer behekem menolan. What are probably the gears is not menolan, but it's rather he says menolan, but it means what is the correct lashon would be what is the stringency of hafara over hakama? What is that? Here it is. The chumrah is that once you break it, you can't take it back. You can't go to the rabbi and take back what you broke. It's broken. There's no more netter anymore, right? It's broken. But if you were makayim it, confirming it is like making a netter, and therefore you could be shoel on the hekem. So the chumrah, there's a chumrah of heifer over hekem, that heifer you cannot be sure along, whereas hekem you can, as we described before. But hakama has a chumrah over hafara, that shtika alone is makayim if you're quiet the whole day. And also if you're makayim it in your heart, which is a kind of a shtika, as we said, there's different kind of shtika. There's shtika, right, that if you're makayim in your heart, that's a kiyum, whereas hafara needs, you have to actually say it. So Rav Chanina got out of these two by saying that the shtika we're talking about is shtika stam. But we still have a problem with Rav Chanina, because if Allah is like him, that it contradicts everything we learned till now. So the rest of on tomorrow's daf, we'll continue with questions which really disprove Rav Chanina. So it comes out that if Rav Chanina is wrong, and you can't, you don't have more time to break it if you were quiet on Manas to fight with her. So what are your options when you hear about your wife's netter or your daughter's netter? Either break it by saying something, or being Mekayim, I confirm it, or being Mekayim in your heart without saying anything, but it's also Hakama, or just waiting out the day and not deciding anything, right? You wait out the day and nothing happens, then it's automatically approved. So tomorrow we'll finish slugging up Rav Chanina. Have a good day.